Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm ZS Caraval from ZK Research, and I'm here at Palo Alto Networks headquarters. I'm with Nikesh Arora, the CEO of Palo Alto. We're going to be talking about AI. This is one of my AI Disruptor series. Now, I've been eager to talk to you. When you think about the impact artificial intelligence had on the tech industry, there's been a lot of focus on, obviously, the chips, server, cloud. There hasn't been a lot of focus on security, though, and which is interesting because it's the number one concern a lot of people have with AI, but that certainly hasn't translated its way into the capital markets yet. So I wanted to get your take on how you think AI is going to disrupt the security industry. Now, when you tie AI to security, there's two sides to the coin, right? There's AI for security, and that's using AI to make security better, but then there's also security for AI, right, which is using security to make AI safer. And so, first of all, do you agree with those two sides of the coin? And what are the differences and similarities between them?
Look, about AI, as you know, we're embarking on possibly the fourth amazing technology cycle in our lifetimes. And I've been through the internet one, been through the mobility one, the cloud one, and now we're at AI.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is the fastest one yet because I think in 12 to 18 months, everybody's talking about AI, and it's kind of interesting because ChatGPT came out first. It caught the fantasy of every one of us as consumers, and now every enterprise wants to see how can they bring that capability into the enterprise. And you can see there's a mad rush for all the enterprise players, data center players to go build out this amazing infrastructure that's going to allow AI to become commonplace in all enterprises. So I think that's kind of the underpinning or the basis of our conversation, I guess.
Yeah.
And in there, as you rightfully said, there are multiple facets to it. One is, well, how is AI going to impact security? As in, perhaps bad actors are going to use AI and get...
Well, they're already doing that.
They are. They're going to get into our businesses faster. So one, how do we deal with that? Two is, can we actually use AI to create better security products, right? And three, equally importantly, how can we make sure that we implement AI in a secure fashion, right? So these are sort of three different versions of it. And I think, like you rightfully said, bad actors are using AI because they are able to ask models questions in interesting ways by saying, hey, I found the CV. How would you go about protecting somebody trying to attack me against the CV? And the model will blurt it out and say, oh, here's what you should do. And they twist it around. They use that in multiple techniques. They sometimes use reinforcement learning on top, which is trying to tell them, well, if you didn't get in this way, what if you tried this way? So you are seeing techniques out there already in the dark web or in the wild, which are getting sort of allowing them to attack faster. Right, so the real outcome is the attacks will become faster. We're going to go down to 2 or 3 hours from sort of, credential compromise to exfiltration of data and some sort of business interruption, which is fast and will get faster. On the other part about how to use AI to secure companies better, you and I have talked about how the game is about data in the future. You got to ingest a lot of data. You got to analyze data on the fly. You got to do it using machine learning and AI because
so much data.
Look, we're ingesting 9 petabytes a day. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Petabyte is more than a terabyte.
Yeah.
1,000 times more. A terabyte is 1,000 times more than a gigabyte. So this is tons of data.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just for like 100 customers or so, right? So imagine if this becomes a worldwide phenomenon. We'll be ingesting lots of data and paying some cloud provider a lot of money. So we have to do that because that's the only way to go find stuff in needle of the haystack at rapid real-time speed and go protect our customers. So there's a lot of techniques we're using from machine learning perspective, AI perspective, trying to make sure that we improve the pace and speed of response, just the way the speed of attacks is increasing. But more importantly now, we talk about how do you securely deploy AI in companies. So we have two sides to that coin. One is, how do you make sure employees are accessing AI in a managed fashion? How do you make sure that no employee is taking corporate data, uploading it into some model, the model's sitting somewhere out in the wild, is getting trained on PII or personal information data or proprietary data, or somebody's scratching a chip design on a napkin, taking a picture and saying, turn this into a CAD document for me.
Yeah, well, that happens. So.
Yeah. So that's one of the areas we want to make sure that we have tools now in place. We've already created that capability in our Access product, and we're talking to a lot of customers out deploying it. On the other side, we have also built a version 1 of our AI firewall, which basically is going to sit around your AI implementations. Imagine a AI assistant or AI agent, which is helping you with your airline ticket. You don't want the airline ticket agent to suddenly start giving away free refunds or start giving away free tickets. So you got to figure out how do you put guardrails that nobody can hack into it and start creating either mischief or worst case business interruption.
Yeah, so let's dive deep in that. When you think about, so you talked about the other transitions we've gone through, and in each of those transitions, we saw a pretty significant evolutionary shift of the technology, right?
Yes,
when we had centralized computing, we had big firewalls, then we had branch offices, you had UTMs, moved to the cloud, now you have software-based firewalls or cloud-based firewalls. How does security from here evolve to adapt, to meet the demands of AI and generative AI?
That's a great question. Like, it's an amazing question because I think for us to understand how security evolves, we have to understand what are the potential architectures for AI in the future, right? Will my car have an AI agent in it? Which
probably.
It already does.
Yeah.
My Tesla kind of tries to drive itself if I don't control it. So do I need a firewall around it so it doesn't go rogue on me? Do I need to be able to make sure there's a kill switch that I can stop it from doing silly things? So I'm sure Elon's got an amazing plan to make sure it's secure. It probably is. But you got to make sure as people start deploying edge AI, there's a new whole world of edge AI firewalls that's going to show up. How do I make sure that the LLM, which is sitting in my data center doing all my customer support tasks or helping me code, those LLMs are actually encased in a secure AI firewall to make sure they don't go rogue on us, because the whole point of AI is going to be over time, as it gets better and better, we're going to give it control to do tasks.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of agentic AI. Now, when you give it control to do tasks, do you want the ability to manage how those can be intercepted? If they are intercepted or hacked, what is your fallback? Because it's a black box, right? You don't really know what's happening in there. So I think we're going to see the emergence of more and more, I'd say, controls or gateways or firewalls that will emerge in the edge case, in the LLM case. So I think those are some of the areas we're looking at. And of course, you will see the use of AI internally in many products, which will start doing agentic tasks. So for us to make things faster, more and more autonomous behavior will come in security, more and more automation is going to come into security.
But that changed the concept of firewall from a physical or virtual device into something that's really more a set of distributed capabilities.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to need a full firewall load in a car or sitting beside an LLM, correct?
Yeah. Well, I think, look, for me, I take a more expanded definition of a firewall. I say every bit needs to be inspected. The act of inspection is the act of firewalling, as in you make sure that nothing untoward can happen in an area you've ring-fenced. So yes, it'll be a virtual form factor. It'll sit around your LLM, making sure it's kind of like the little halo around the LLM to make sure that nobody's getting in and out without checking with me. I'm kind of the gatekeeper to make sure I can watch the traffic going in and out so no untoward things happen.
Yeah. Now, from an AI for security standpoint, when you think of security operations, in fact, I know, Nikesh, you've been very vocal about the need to transform security operations. What does that look like with AI? Does it wind up a world where everything's fully operated? I know right now there's a lot of co-pilots and things being built. Yeah. Do we wind up talking to our security tools like in the Iron Man movies?
Hopefully, eventually, I think if you don't have a North Star, if somebody doesn't tell you, I'm going to have rockets that take us to Mars, he won't have rockets that come back, and he won't have rockets that send satellites up there. So you have to have a North Star, which is ambitious. So yes, our North Star is that your SOC tools should protect you without you having to intervene very often, right? That should be the holy grail of the North Star. Now, we have to crawl, walk, run, because we're coming from a very, very disparate security infrastructure. So the first step is, for me to make any sense of everything, I have to make sure I have all the data. So it starts with ingesting all the data and running a whole bunch of machine learning models and precision AI against it to see, do I understand my security posture? Do I understand the problems that I'm being alerted to? Today, it's very manual. It's done many different ways around the world. So
very slow too.
Yeah, so our first step is to do that. And we've talked about this in our XIM product. We're able to do that, take people from days to minutes. Minutes isn't good enough. We want to get it instantaneous, but at least that's a big improvement. And the only way we get there is a lot more AI determination, a lot more correlation, a lot of detectors, a lot of machine learning, and a lot of automation. So today, in the SOC, we can reduce the effort required or the monotonic tasks from SOC analysts down by 40 to 50%. We still need their brain, so the other 50% to say, hey, can you take a look at this? Is this the right answer? But the whole notion, like you said, the co-pilot is like, okay, let's make sure we encourage them and tell them what we think and let them validate that. Now, after a point in time, when I show somebody something 10 times, they do the same action, and I learn as a co-pilot. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to go from a co-pilot to an autopilot, right? It's kind of the way Tesla is doing it, right?
Yeah.
It used to turn sometimes and ask me sometimes. It's turning more and more and freaking me out a little bit, but I get it.
Yeah, so that's a good analogy, and I've used that before too. When you think of the vision of autopilot, it's pretty fascinating.
Yes.
Now, very few people want to jump in a car with no driver and no steering wheel.
I heard a bunch of people like in the city. I think it must be the younger people who are willing to do that. Older people are not taking the risk as much.
But there are a bunch of AI features in cars, parallel park assist, lane change alert, that make us better drivers.
Yes.
So what are the security analogies?
I'm guessing one day AI will be better drivers than you and I, but that's okay.
I think, frankly, I think autopilot probably is for most people. But when you think, if you take that analogy down to the security industry, what are those lane change alert use cases?
Yeah, so that's great. Great question. Look, let's take 2 or 3 scenarios, right? In one scenario, there's a breach happening. Your breach has touched 17 different cybersecurity vendors in infrastructure. We all have a few alerts. We all have a sense of what's going on, but nobody has a picture from the end-to-end perspective. Now, if an AI agent can go collect all that data across the 17 things at a certain timestamp and say, look, I've collected everything, I've run some correlation rules, I think we have a problem here. That's great. That saved the analyst the manual task of logging into 17 places or going to 17 different logs or running some correlation rules against it. So, okay, now I can spend time applying my brain. So does this look suspicious? Do I have to solve something here? So I think the context enrichment, agentic task that brings stuff together is one example. The other example is there are some very simple known attacks, a phishing attack. There's no rocket science to it. It's just like a brute force attack. Now, if I can sense a phishing attack, I can show the SOC analyst, I see this in 10,000 instances. Should I just run a playbook to block them and just block this URL? Like, yeah, please go ahead and do it because I do this 3 times a day. So there's a bunch of, I'd say, A, lower level tasks to start with, B, mass tasks, which eliminate a lot of the, improve the signal to noise ratio. These will become the automated tasks. And we're already seeing that in the XIM capability. Customers are writing playbooks. They don't want to see it again. They want it to be automated. And slowly over time, these things will become par for the course. And we'll get into more and more interesting tasks where we'll say, hey, listen, I just saw an attack at a different customer which went like this. I see the same pattern in your infrastructure. Take a look at it. Right? So there's this correlation and then transparency and sharing across customers, which you can do with AI and automation.
Yeah, and so let's pivot the conversation a little bit to platform.
Yes.
In fact, Palo Alto has been one of the most active companies in articulating the value of platform. Now, although the concept has been out there for some time.
Yes. Not in security as much, but okay.
Well, that's
maybe,
true. But
maybe.
It's been
I
hard.
think you said it earlier in chatting, like everybody defines a platform to their benefit.
But it's been hard to get customers to move off this best of breed concept. Now, I was at the F1 event in Austin. I think you were there too.
Yes.
And I was
watching.
I was talking to one of the race teams, and they were talking about, they have data in their car, which is what they think of as an edge computer.
Yeah.
They've got it back at their headquarters.
Yeah.
And they can't wait for AI and security and this concept of the platform they've embraced because they have so much data in so many places. So if we move into this world where I've got data everywhere, I'm trying to use it for AI, does this not shift the value prop of a platform of being something that maybe is nice to have because it's operation a little bit better? Do I have to have it because I simply can't secure without it?
So I think if you look at security and call it peacetime security and incident security, right? We just discussed the whole XIM, SOC management. It's called that incident security because I'm actually investigating an active incident. On peacetime security, you want to make sure all the controls are in place and they're working perfectly. And you're blocking shit that that needs to be blocked. Now, in peacetime security, there's a huge efficiency argument to doing it once in one way. Right? Today, if you look at the evolution of technology, like you said, we've been through many, many cycles, not just the internet cloud one, but even sub-cycles of client server and mainframe, et cetera. Now, the old days, the only way you access the application, you went through a VPN tunnel. You had a VPN tunnel, you ran into your firewall, you went in there, that's great. Well, when the cloud came about and people said, oh, wait, I can just do a proxy and go to the internet access and go access it differently. Now, they were two different products. Right? So same user could go one way to the SaaS application, another way to the on-prem application. They say, oh my God, this is great, but I have a contractor. I don't want to go through this. I'm going to go through VDI because there's a whole new interface to get into your apps because I want double security. Then you have remote browser isolation. Suddenly you've got 5 different ways of accessing the same applications and same data.
That's why users get frustrated.
Yeah, and there are 5 different security controls. Now, the problem is the more security controls you introduce to our customers, the more they have to configure them, manage them, watch them, understand them. Now, so what do you say? Why do we need 5 different ways? Why can't we have one? So part of what we're trying to do with the platform is to provide one pane of glass with one set of controls, right? So our network security platform is one pane of glass with one set of controls. Yet we also have a best-of-breed solution saying if you only want to buy one piece, it comes sort of, sort of in a module that you can deploy without having to get the other parts, because we have to sort of live in the current environment. So we've built it in such a way that you can buy any particular piece of the platform and over time expand to the rest of the platform. So that's our approach. It's working. It's hard work because we are dealing with legacy infrastructure, incumbent architectures, but the customers who we have convinced, and we convince a bunch every quarter, the customers you have convinced will see a long-term benefit of lower TCO, better security, and also it's kind of like a one-way door, right? Once you go down the platform route, you're never going to go back and say, oh, no, I don't like this much. Let me go back and have 3 security panes of glass and 3 sets of expertise. So I think it's getting them through the hurdle, convincing them, showing them the value, and that's a heavy lift for us, but you got to keep at it.
Yeah, where do you think the biggest gaps are in the security industry today? Because we still, companies spend an increasingly larger amount of their budget on security.
Yes.
Breaches still happen.
Yes.
AI's coming, and everyone knows that the threat actors are going to use it. And what do you see are the gaps, and how do we close those?
That's a great question, and I think I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that. And I think we have to change the paradigm, because if you look at security, I haven't met a security leader or CIO, and even ours, who says, it could happen to us. It's likely.
It's likely, yeah.
Even if you have all the best security controls in place, there's a human factor, right? I can hijack an identity, I can get a credential, so I may look like I'm a legitimate user, but I may end up being in your system doing things. So if you take that point of view, then what becomes incumbent, what becomes important is say, okay, let's for a second assume everything I bought on the left to put the controls in place is good, yet something's going to happen. Then the question becomes, how quickly do you find that something's happening? How quickly can you fix it? And in the worst case, if you're down, how quickly do you come back up, right? So I think the industry has spent too much time on the controls and configuration and the peacetime part, not enough time on the other side. And a lot of that, as you know, 50% of that part is outsourced to third parties who don't understand your infrastructure sometimes, right? So I think the industry needs to pay attention to that side, saying, what is my medium time to remediate? What is my medium time to detect? How quickly can I do data recovery? How quickly can I come back up and running? Because you know what? 1,800 customers got ransomware attacked in the last 12 months.
Yeah, that's an interesting set of metrics that I don't think most companies even have any idea how to calculate.
No, I asked CIO and CISOs that, like, what's your medium time to detect? And it's like, I don't know. Like, well, the good news is I can keep selling you a lot of stuff on this side, but if you can't tell me how quickly you find out the bad stuff, then what's the point?
Yeah, I can just keep selling them more stuff. So just a couple more questions. I think, what are a couple of things that get overlooked in your discussion with customers when it comes to AI and security, that things that CISOs and CIOs should be thinking about but aren't?
Look, I think CIOs and CISOs, and again, I think this is the majority understand that, because the good news is CIOs and CISOs and us and possibly everybody else in the industry are fully aligned on the fact that we need to get a better and faster security outcome. Like I haven't met a CIO CISO who doesn't have 2 or 3 security projects every year.
Yeah, well, that's easy to say, hard to do.
Which part?
Getting to faster outcomes.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying I want to shift the focus to the right-hand side. Saying shift the focus on how quickly can I remediate and respond. Because once you get that, you can work backwards and start replacing pieces of infrastructure to make it a lower TCO and in a better security posture. But the premise in both scenarios is that something will happen, right? So let's go fix that first, because that's the crying need of the hour, and then we'll work backwards to make that cheaper, better, faster. But a lot of people spend too much time here saying, oh my God, I got to replace my SD-WAN, I got to replace my SASE vendor, I got to replace a bunch of firewalls. I get it. You can replace them. You can have the ones today, but let's go make sure on the other side you're trapping everything and you're analyzing everything quickly, because that's where the world is going.
Yeah. So we spent all this time shifting security left. Now you're saying shift right.
Yes, you're shifting security left. You're right. You're shifting security left because you're trying to solve root cause.
Yeah.
Which is also important, because at some point in time you don't want so many, alerts and actions on the other side that it becomes overwhelming, because we're trying to reduce the noise. But I think it's important to pay attention to both ends. But I think you got to get your house in order first.
All right. So then, last question. Just a couple pieces of advice to people watching this. If the focus then is to create better metrics and and understand the right side, how do they get there?
Look, I think one of the crying needs of the hour is, instead of being reactive to your portfolio and saying, look, I have these 3 vendors, end of life, or these are old tech, actually step back, strategize, build a roadmap, and saying in the next 2 years, here's what I want to be. And work backward and say, what should you replace? What should you modernize? What process do you need to improve to get there? I think sometimes you get caught in this moment of saying, oh, I got to do this project now, worry about the next project later. And then you end up realizing you've just replaced something which would have to be replaced again if you had to get to a different
Yeah, you described the very nature of IT, though, haven't you?
Yeah, but I think, look, I am cautiously optimistic because many of the CIOs I meet, they understand. Look, think about it. I've only been in this industry 6.5 years, and I've already seen a sea change so far. If you look, this industry has been around for 25 plus years. And I think there is a growing realization that the old model hasn't worked, right? Why would 1,800 companies be attacked for ransomware if security was working?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh my God, I didn't find out for 14 days they were in my infrastructure. Well, that's kind of silly. Why did it take you that long? Well, because I got all these disparate parts and I got to go configure all of them, make it all work. Well, that model hasn't worked. I mean, it's like going back, and I said this earlier to some people, it's like going back and say, oh, I used to have 24 apps that were made up my CRM system, and I used to capture data from and download overnight, move it there, and reconcile RDB and databases. I'm like, do you want to go back to that world? No, you have a CRM system today. So I think if you play the movie forward and look back, say, holy shit, I shouldn't be living there. So I think that's what we got to do. We got to go work it one at a time with our partners, with our customers, as an industry, and say, let's build a roadmap. Let's see what good looks like 2 years from now. It's not going to happen tonight. But if you work towards the roadmap, they're more likely you'll achieve your plan to go to Mars than if you just say, slingshot it and best of breed your time.
Actually, I do want one more question based on that. Then I'm going to flip what you just said around.
Okay.
Palo Alto, when you joined, was known as the industry's best firewall vendor. You've expanded in other areas. When we're through this AI transition, what do you want Palo Alto to be known as?
Well, look, we cover 80% of the cybersecurity industry's requirements today. We used to cover 16 or 18% 6 years ago. Eventually, we want to aspire to cover 100% of our customers' need, one. And two, we want to be the security platform of choice, saying if I deploy this, it takes care of most of my things, and all I have to do is configure and manage on top of that. And I'm spending more time doing brain work as a customer, where my machine learning analysts are writing algorithms on their platform. I've got custom models that I'm building or specific things for my business because I know my business best, as opposed to, I have a mishmash of cybersecurity vendors. I take all the data, dump it in some SOC, which is now being managed in India or in Philippines or in Singapore. And when the shit hits the fan, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to add?
No, this is a great conversation.
All right.
You were going to flip it around, you said.
Yeah, well, I did. So you were talking about planning ahead. And so when you think of the vision of Palo 5 years from now, what do you, 100% coverage?
100% coverage is security platform of choice.
Yeah.
I mean, people should not, there should be no debate. And I think, repetition does not spoil the prayer. So I will keep saying we need a platform until we all have one.
Yeah, all right. Well, on that note, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So on behalf of Nikesh Arora, I'm ZKast from ZK Research, and thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'll see you next time on the next episode of ZKast.